Our goal is going to be able to set this industry on fire, and we're going to make sure that when I look at it that way, I'm dropping the ball on my responsibility. Welcome to another episode of the Relentless CEO podcast. I'm Adam Kifer, and I'm excited to be joining you guys again this week. We're going to dive into some of my biggest takeaways from spending the weekend with a 9-figure business owner. It's about as close to a billionaire as you can get. And the insights that I got, not only from talking to him, but talking to some of the other successful business owners in the group. Now, if I have one piece of advice for every single entrepreneur watching and listening to this, it is this. Find a way to put yourself into rooms where you are the dumbest person in the room. You need to be in rooms with people that are doing things at a higher level than you, with people that are making you think bigger, and also where they're making you not only think bigger, but you're thinking so big it makes you uncomfortable, where you're sweating a little bit. Those are the rooms you need to be in. And one of my favorite parts about this weekend is I was surrounded by a group of super successful business people that challenged the way that I thought. They challenged the way that I did things in my business. And the reason that they challenged it is because they wanted to see me grow. Okay, they're able to see things at a different level than me just because they've had more experience. They're maybe scaling with companies where they have 1,000+ employees for their companies. So a lot of really important insights were gained from this weekend. And my goal today in this podcast is to really share some of my biggest takeaways from the conversations I had with these super successful entrepreneurs with all of you guys watching. So first thing I want to say is when we met, and if you were like on a fly in the wall looking in, we're meeting in a room with all these multimillionaires and 9-figure earners. And what do you think the first thing we started talking about is as a group? It wasn't business. It wasn't money. It wasn't how to be more successful. It was about relationships and family. So a lot of times I think, and before I started getting into those rooms, I just thought everything was business talk. And really what I have come to find out over the years of attending different meetings like this and having interactions with millionaires and billionaires is that a lot of times it's focused on the personal development first, business second. Okay, and you guys have heard me talk about this before. Like, most businesses don't have business problems. They have personal problems that infect the business. So if you're not constantly working on yourself and growing yourself, a lot of those problems and a lot of those weaknesses are going to start to carry over into your business. And then now you got problems you have to solve on the personal side and the business side. When if you can fix it on the personal side, it makes the business run a lot easier. So number one, I had a conversation with that 9-figure earner I was talking about, and we sat down and he was talking to the room and he said, "Hey, how do you know when you should be saying no to things and when you should be saying yes?" And the problem was, as I'm hearing this, I'm thinking to myself, I don't really have a set of standards for that. Like, I know that there's certain things that are a waste of time that I'm going to say no to. And I know there's certain things that are great opportunities that are going to help us to grow the business that I'll definitely say yes to. But what does that look like? How do you systemize that? How do you standardize that? So one of the things that he had me do is he had me take down every task that I could remember from the last week, and I wrote it on a piece of paper. Then next to each one of those tasks, I had to assign $1 per hour amount to what I would probably have to pay someone to do that task if it wasn't me doing it. So if it was something like, even like small things like making myself coffee, right, that's probably like a $10 an hour task max, right? So we're going through and I'm writing this list down. And then he comes over and he looks at this list that I made and he draws a red line, poof, like 3 lines from the top. And he says, "Adam, everything below this line, you are not allowed to do anymore. 80% of what you're doing this year should be done by someone else next year. So I want you to look at this list and realize that everything below this line, it's all like lower dollar per hour amount. Everything below this line, you need to find a way to delegate this, eliminate, or automate it. Everything above this line," so for me, it was everything generating $250 an hour or more, $500 an hour or more. He goes, "Everything above this line, I want you to keep doing because it is at the pay level that you should be at. Anything that is below $500 an hour, that's a task, needs to be delegated to someone else because it's the only way that you're going to continue to grow and get to where you want to be." And it's funny because I have an awesome assistant. I have an amazing team in all the companies, and I have all these people that are great at the responsibilities that we give them. But for some reason, I'm still doing a lot of the small stuff like making coffee or running errands and stuff like that. And it's like, No, we have to delegate that because that's the only way that we can make sure that my time is focused on the things most important to growing, scaling, and taking the business to the next level. So for all of you guys, since this was like an eye-opener for me, what I would encourage you to do is do the same activity. For a week straight, the end of each night, just write down every task you did in your business. And then at the end of the week, look through those tasks, mark down the dollar per hour amount that you have to pay someone to do that for you. And if, let's say your goal is to make $100,000 a year, that's $50 an hour, right? So in your case, I would say anything that's under $50 an hour, if you're not making $100,000 a year yet, anything under $50 an hour, you are going to delegate, you're going to automate it or eliminate it completely. So that way you can focus only on doing tasks that are $50 an hour or more, so you can hit your goal of getting to $100,000. I remember when I was probably 24, 25 years old, like I thought earning $100,000 a year would be like the coolest thing ever, and I'd be so rich if I could get $100,000 per year. So I did exactly what I explained, and I would eliminate all tasks under $50 an hour. When I got to $100,000 a year, I was like, man, this is not as much money as I thought it would be, because your expenses go up as your revenue goes up. So I was like, all right, I need to rearrange some things with this to get to the next level. So for you guys, just go ahead and keep track for a week, because if you can eliminate a lot of those things that are just way below your pay grade, some of you guys might be cleaning your studio, right? If you can hire a cleaning company to clean your studio instead of you doing it yourself, that time that you get back as a result can be put into things that are actually going to generate more revenue for the business and move that needle more. So that way you can hire more people, you can provide more opportunities to the people on your team and really take everything to the next level. So it's funny, after having that conversation with this gentleman, I just sat there like in my head for a second, and I'm just like, how did I not ever go back and do this? Like when I was 25, I was able to do it, and that helped me get to $100,000 a year. But why haven't I done it since then? And it was a good reminder for me to make sure that I'm focusing on that. So now I have this whiteboard in my office that is in direct vision of my desk, and on there it says $500 an hour or more, say yes. Everything under, giant letters, no. Okay? That's my visual reminder to make sure that I hold myself accountable for doing the right tasks for my role. Number 2, this was pretty damn awesome. Most of our businesses have seen growth like this, like continuously year over year, and it's been super exciting and fun to see. We're able to hire more people, build our team, and grow everything. But for like the last 6 months, I felt like we were just sort of like level and not seeing the same growth that we had been seeing for the last like 2.5, 3 years. And I think part of that was my limiting belief of waiting for us to hit like a certain tier of success before we go all in. And I'm not saying that was like front of mind. I think it was more subconscious thought than anything. But for some reason, I was afraid to push the gas pedal all the way to the floor, because I kept telling myself, we need to do this first. We need to do this first. We need to do this first. If I went back a year ago to CEO Adam then was like, I'm pushing my foot all the way to the gas, and I need someone to hold my knee down so that the gas pedal never comes back up. And I think just from maybe not focusing on that or thinking about it enough, I sort of created a new habit of like being more cautious and taking my time in things more, almost to the point where it halted our growth a bit. So as I was listening to the same gentleman, I felt like he was staring into my soul when he said this, but he goes, all of you guys need to stop waiting for success to give you permission to take massive action. Because in my head, I kept telling myself, we need to be here before we do X, Y, and Z. Well, what's the worst case thing that's going to happen if I do X, Y, and Z before we get to here? It's just going to propel us faster. So as we're talking about growth, okay, and waiting for success to give us permission to move forward, the other aspect is we think a lot about like growing like a little bit at a time. And a lot of times when we set goals for ourselves or for our business, we set very cautious goals. And I think with our franchise we're building out, I have very, very large and lofty goals that we've set. But for all my companies, I don't think I've set those goals in the same way. Like goals that scare you, that make you like pee your pants a little bit, right? Those are the goals that you need to set for your business. So one of the themes of this weekend was exponential growth, incremental growth. Exponential growth all the way. 10x is better than 2x. So one of the concepts that we really talked about a lot this weekend was, well, what happens if I shoot for 10 times what I want instead of 2 times what I want? Because a lot of us, we want to be safe, we want to be cautious, we want to mitigate risk and all of that. Instead, what happens if we just shoot for the stars? We land on the moon if we miss, right? And we still see that growth either way. So I encourage all of you to do what I did when I was reflecting on this last weekend, is to take a look at your goals that you set for your business. And if they don't scare you when you look at them, if they don't make your heart flutter a little bit when you look at those goals, then I would ask you to reconsider those goals and make them bigger, make them scarier, make it where you look at it where you're like, holy crap, everyone's going to think I'm crazy that I even set this goal in the first place. If you look at people like Elon Musk, if you look at people like Steve Jobs and these amazing outside of the box entrepreneurs that have really just taken companies to places that none of us thought possible, all of their goals are pretty insane. Like Elon Musk wants us living in Mars in the next 10 years. Wouldn't you say that's a pretty insane goal? But look at what he's been able to develop in the meantime because of how big his dreams are, how big his goals are. We're no different. We just got to make sure that we get out of caring about what other people think, and you flex that id-gaff muscle, that I don't give a fuck muscle. It doesn't matter about the opinions of other people. The only opinions that matter are the people in your inner circle, and whatever aligns with your vision, your strategy, and your goals, and your core values. As long as it has that alignment, okay, you are going in the right direction. But a lot of times we just got to raise that bar higher and higher to get ourselves to think bigger and also to get ourselves to move faster into that direction. So I had a specific goal that I set for both Relentless Media Agency and also the CEO Mastermind at the beginning of the year. And when I got back, I was looking at that goal and I was like, it's not scary. Like, I think it's doable. Like, it needs to be scary. So I wrote my new goal for our revenue generation over the next 12 months on my whiteboard in my office. And now I stare at that every day and I'm just like, holy shit, that's a lot, but we're going to kick ass and do it. And I also think it's going to help me to push our team harder to get there. And I think it's going to motivate them more to get there because when they see that number, they're just going to think of opportunity. They're going to think of salary increases. They're going to think of all the possibilities that they can get as they grow with the company. And that's what I want. I want them to picture themselves with us when we get to that landmark number. The next part, and this is for all of you guys that attend events and go to those events to work on your personal development. It's okay to step out of sessions or step out of the event to have focused conversations. I think a lot of times when we sign up for events, we think like we have to sit in every single session throughout the entire event. I'll be honest with you guys, a lot of times when I go to masterminds or I go to events, I will sit through like 2 or 3 sessions and then I get something that's like the thing I needed. And my brain just feels like it's got enough stuff in there right now. I will step out of the session and I will go have a conversation with someone in the hallway. I will maybe go and sort of start to flesh out what that idea or what that tactic I learned looks like in my business or my life. And I'll just start going into implementation mode right there, knowing that I can always go back and watch the recordings of anything that I missed from being at that event or being in that mastermind session. Because I think the problem is a lot of times there's so much information, and also at some events there's conflicting information that your brain just like shuts down at some point. And you sitting in the room, you're not even absorbing anything because the sponge is already full of water. Like the water is just beating off the sponge at that point. So remember that it's okay to take a break. Remember, it's okay to go and just give yourself a mental break so that you can focus on being a better implementer and really focus on what the big need is for you. For what that looked like this last event, if you were at the Relentless Summit, you met Jimmy Nelson, who is the MC of the event. He was also at this event that I went to, and they had like a group dinner that they were doing for this mastermind. And Jimmy and I decided to call an audible, and we're like, hey, we're just going to go to the hotel restaurant, which was amazing. And we're going to catch up. We're going to drink some old fashions, and we're just going to chat. And it was so funny because at first we were both sitting there and we were feeling a little guilty for missing out on like the group dinner or whatever. After about like 4 old fashions, we were having the time of our life, and something amazing happened. I was telling Jimmy about something that we're working on with Move as far as like the design of everything inside the locations. And he just threw an idea out there that was like so outside of the box from the direction that I was going in. And as soon as he said it, I knew instantly that was the right move. Like it was like the missing puzzle piece. Like I got that 1,000-piece puzzle and I opened up the box and there's 999 pieces. Jimmy gave me that like missing piece to like really just put the whole picture together. And that wouldn't have happened from us just going along and sitting in a room, just learning more. And I'm sure everyone at the dinner had a great time, but for us, we sort of needed that just like away from everyone moment so that we could just talk about our businesses and relax and give our brain a break from 2 days of learning. And then the other thing that was cool is I was sitting there, and as soon as you give me that idea, I was like, I need to write this down, because if we have a couple more old fashions, I might not remember it tomorrow. So I wrote the idea down, and I was like, man, I owe you one now. And then we started talking for another like 20, 30 minutes, and he was working on a storytelling and speaking program, since he helps people learn how to be better public speakers and keynote speakers. And he was talking about it, and I thought of an idea of what he should name it, and I just spit it out, and he just was like, oh my God, Adam. He's like, that was the perfect name for this. I need to write that down. So he wrote down that idea. And it was just the sharing of like, we each got one giant gold nugget from each other, just from the conversation outside of the mastermind. So a couple of takeaways that you guys can grab from this is, number one, don't be afraid to step out of the sessions. Don't be afraid to step out of the organized events and just do your own thing. I think you have to listen to your own body. You have to listen to how your brain feels, and you have to do what's appropriate. Like, there's some events I'll go to where I can sit in a 9 to 5 session and not feel like overwhelmed, not feel like my brain's about to explode. There's some things I've gone to that are so technical or in depth that I sit through one session, I'm like, I need a break. Like, I need my brain just to recover for a second. Second thing is, when you go to events, don't be the person that sits in the corner of the room by yourself, not talking to anyone. Like, some of the best things that happen at this event were outside of the learning room. It was with conversations that we had at the pool. It was conversations that we had at dinner over drinks. And the biggest takeaways happen in those moments, because a couple things happen. Number one, you get to dive really deep into whatever your own personal challenges are in those conversations. So it's not something that's just going to a general audience. It's like you're getting one-on-one time, okay? It'd be like if a doctor saw 50 people at once, or just you. Like, whatever they say to the 50 people is going to be very general, very broad. They don't know medical histories, anything like that. But when it's just you and the doctor, they know your medical history. They know what's going on with you. They can give you a better diagnosis because it's one-on-one. Same thing is true at these events, right? You're getting the general diagnosis by being in the room, but those individual conversations, now we're really deep diving into what's going on and how to fix certain things in your life and in your business. So you have to get up and talk to people. And even if you're an introvert, like I am an introvert 100%, but even if you're an introvert, sometimes just sitting with those people, you don't even have to be the one talking right out of the gate. Sometimes it's listening to those conversations until you feel comfortable opening up with those people. But I can't tell you how many times I've gone to an event where the biggest takeaway for me was from a conversation that happened in the hallway or happened outside of the actual event. Next one. This was so good. So we have a joke like with Kelly and Travis and my wife, because they call me Deep Questions, because whenever we're together, I'm like, all right, guys, deep question for you. Just because I love learning about people. I love learning about human behavior. I love learning about psychology. So I'm always interested in like these deep type of questions that we throw out with each other and seeing how people respond, and really just peeling back the layers of the onion so I can get to know the people for like who they really are. We also call it firing your representative, where it's like most people, when they meet you for the first time, they're showing you their representative. Okay, if you go on a blind date with someone, you're not going on a date with that person. You're going on a date with their representative. They're showing you the best parts of themselves. If they have 6 toes, they don't tell you that. They just say they can run 10% faster than the average human, until you find out later they have 6 toes, right? So a lot of times we go to these events and it's our representative showing up, and we don't play all in. The cool thing about this is we actually sort of got forced to play all in. We were sitting in a cabana next to the pool at the Broadmoor, and we were in there. We were just like having some drinks, eating some food, and it started pouring outside, like huge storm, lightning, everything, like crazy rain. So we're all like 5 of us stuck in this cabana, and it's raining cats and dogs all around us. So we can't really go anywhere because it's pouring and no one wants to get soaked. So we just started having this amazing conversation, and it started where it was between Jim Dew, who is a guest speaker at our summit, and Chris Crone, who is like a billionaire real estate mogul, and they're just talking about life, okay? And I'm going to do my best to summarize this. It's not as good as being there, but hopefully you guys get the gist of this. So Chris had asked everyone in the tent, he's like, hypothetical, let's say you go to see the doctor and the doctor tells you you have 1 week to live. And no matter what, at the end of that week, you're dead. What are you doing differently in your life to live that 1 week than you're currently doing now? I think a couple things came out of this. Number one is everyone's like, well, I'm definitely spending time with my wife and spending time with my family more. Like, I'm going to make sure that like I go see my best friend that I've been wanting to go see. And the thing that I realize is urgency for important things increases instantly when we put ourselves in that mindset. When we put ourselves in the mindset, like, what if I only had 1 week to live? Like, all the things you've been putting off, the people that you've been putting off seeing, the family time that you might be putting off because of whatever work project you have on, none of that matters anymore. Like, I'm telling you, if it was me, I'm not going to work that week. I'm spending that time with my kids and spending that time with my wife. I'm double checking to make sure like our life insurance is good and like all of that stuff is set up. I'm handling all the important things, right? All my top priorities in life. But some of us, we live like we have forever. When you live like you have forever, you're going to keep putting off those important things because there's always going to be new things coming your way. So it was just a cool way to put it in perspective. So he has us all thinking about like, all right, if we had 1 week to live, what are we doing? Then he goes, let's say at the end of that week, you go to the doctor, or the doctor calls you and he says, hey, Adam, I made a horrible mistake. You actually have 1 more month to live. But I'm positive this time, at the end of this month, like, that's all you have. There's not a single day after that. And then Chris asked us, he said, well, how would you live then if you had a month? Like, what would be different? And for me, I'm thinking, I'm like, I probably would check in with work, and I would probably just make sure that everything in the business was set to go without me and continue on, because I want to see all my employees being able to grow and earn more money. I want to see all the team members really be able to take the company to our vision over the next 3 years. And the same thing would be true with spending time with my wife. But the thing that changed for me is I was like, you know what? I think I would go to Italy, because I want to take my wife and my kids. I want to go to Italy. And the perspective of it was, why am I waiting? Like, it's that thing like on the horizon, like, oh, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. We're going to spend summers in Italy one day. And then this drill, I'm like, how, if I had a month to live, I'd be going tomorrow. So why wait? So again, those things of when it comes to actually like living life, a lot of us are like, oh, dude, after retirement. Well, just to give you guys a stat, the average person at age 65 has $265,000 in retirement. Okay, they found that to retire, you really need about 10 times that amount to retire at the age of 65 and to live like an okay life where like your bills are covered and everything, which means most people only have 10% of the money that they need after they've already lived 80% of their life. So if you're waiting for retirement and you don't actually have a plan in place, you're not going to have the money to be able to live your life at retirement. You can have success in your business in your life now and still live your life and have a great time and do all the things that you want to do. So it's about not putting it off. And then he went on to continue these questions, and he said, all right, doctor calls back. He goes, now you have a year to live. What changes? The same thing with 10 years. You have 10 years to live. And the whole point of this is he wraps it up and he says, thinking about this gets you to think about how you live your life differently. He goes, for me, I live it in 4-month increments. He goes, every 4 months, I pretend I'm starting a new life. And then when that new 4 months starts, I pretend that I only have 4 months to live. And I live my life like I only have 4 months to live. Because it makes sure that I'm not putting off the things I want to do in my life. It makes sure that I'm not putting things off till later. And that it creates urgency in my life to take action on those things now. Like, for everyone listening, if you're waiting to like fix your marriage till later, no. Like, pretend you have a month to live. Like, what would you do? There's a book called The Last Regrets of the Dying, which is it's a good book. It's a hard read. It's super emotional. But in this book, it's a hospice nurse that interviews all of her patients. And some of these patients are just normal, average persons. Some of these patients are millionaires. Some of them are like former like celebrities. Like, it's a whole gamut of people that you think a hospice nurse would see. And all these people are on their deathbed. And none of their regrets revolve around money. None of their regrets revolve around work. It was all about they wish they spent more time with so-and-so. They wish they learned how to do this. They wish they visited this place. They wish that they had or repaired a relationship that was broken. So if we think about even millionaires on their deathbed, like they're not wishing about anything about money. They're not wishing about anything about work or their business. Even for them, it all goes back to relationships. It all goes back to missed experiences. So my question for all of you guys listening is, what is the experience that you guys have been putting on hold because you're waiting for permission? What is the relationship that you've been putting on hold because you've been waiting until XYZ happens? What's the relationship that you've been waiting to mend because you keep telling yourself you need to wait for these things to happen before you can mend that relationship? I guarantee if you had a week or a month, you would find a way to fix those things. You would find a way to repair those relationships and to push forward. There was a story he was telling us in the same vein of, it was a husband and wife that had marital issues. Husband was told that he had a couple weeks to live, and immediately he pushed all the feelings off to the side and was pretty much like, hey, I don't care about what's happened between us. I don't care about the arguments we've had. I don't care about our disagreements, because all I want to do is I just want to love on you for these last 2 weeks. Like, it's amazing how the priorities change when we're given a certain time window. So I think for you guys, the takeaway here is, like, stop waiting. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for something to happen before you take action. Start living your life like you only have a certain period of time to live, because time is finite. It is not infinite. Many of us live our lives like we have forever to get everything done. You don't. We are not promised tomorrow. We're not promised next week. We're not promised next month. So what are you going to take action on today that you've been putting off because you feel like you have unlimited time? All right. Next part. We're going to take that same question and apply it to your business now. Let's say you are forced to sell your business 3 months from now. Like, you had no control over it. You are absolutely forced to sell your business in 3 months from now. Now, if we know about exiting a business or selling a business, there's certain things you have to do to make sure you can get the most value out of it. Is it systemized? Is the business completely reliant on you, or is it run by your team? Is it profitable? Is it profitable over a consistent period of time? So I took this question, also applied it to the business side. I was like, man, what if I had to sell my business in 12 months? Okay, or what if, like, I knew 12 months in advance that this person with an unlimited amount of money was going to offer to buy my business for me? What would I be doing in my business to make sure that in 12 months I get the highest offer possible from that person? Like, what different changes would I make? What different personnel decisions would I make? What would I do organizationally to make it different? And a lot of times, again, with our business, we tell ourselves like we have forever. We don't have a set timeline that we've put ourselves on. So I apply the same, like, instead of 4 months, I'm doing 3 months, so I could do it based on the quarters per year. But I'm like, every three months is a new, like, year for our business in a sense. Okay, it's a new, like, life and death of the business. So we know what's going to happen and what we're going to implement in the next 3 months already. Like, we have a game plan of some new awesome stuff that we're launching for the martial arts industry that's really going to help to push martial arts schools forward. We know, and we have plans of growing the team. We have plans of pretty close to doubling revenue over the next 3 months. And then what happens after that? Well, guess what? It's a new life of the business. So in those next 3 months, we're going to work on developing something new. We're going to work on adding something, bolstering the team up more, whatever we need to do to hit a new milestone the next 3 months. I think for a lot of us, we compare year over year so much that it gives us so much time to get lazy and complacent. But when you think of, like, every 3 months like it's a new business year, like, you're going to start hustling harder. You're going to start putting in more work. You're going to start being more focused on the details. You're going to start being more focused on getting to your goals faster. All of a sudden, like, one of our goals, I'll tell you guys, is to 10x our revenue in the next 12 months. Okay, again, we talked about scary goals, right? But when I first wrote this goal down on a piece of paper, I wrote the number down, I looked at it and I was like, that's fucking awesome. But also I was like, shit, I'm going to tell people that and they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. But then I started thinking about it in the 3 month increments. And I just looked at the next 3 months and I was like, all right, we're putting this into place. This is going to almost double our revenue. We're going to put this into place. This will be sort of a slow drip over the next 3 months, but it's going to increase revenue gradually month by month. I'm like, all right, we're going to get us probably a quarter of the way in the next 3 months, pretty easy. Then I'm looking at the 3 months after that. And if that growth continues over the next 3 months, we're going to probably be more than halfway to that crazy ass goal that I wrote down on this piece of paper. And if we're already more than halfway in 6 months, I know that all we have to do is push through the last 6 months of the year and just keep being consistent with what we're doing and keep quality checking everything, and we'll be at that goal in no time. And all of a sudden it took this crazy ass goal that I was like, man, that's going to be tough. And when I started thinking about in 3 month life cycles, man, in 3 months I think we can crush it. And then guess what? Next 3 months it starts over. A new plan, new game plan. What's the new focus for the next 3 months? So I just want to get you guys to think outside of the box a little bit more in your planning and your goal setting and your strategies. My 3 biggest implementations I'm also going to share from you guys. So one thing I do is every time I go to a meeting, there's so much information or an event, there's so much information that it's really easy to go there, collect information, and then do nothing with it, because a lot of people get information overload. But for me, like some of these rooms, like the room I was in this last weekend, it was a $15,000 ticket just to be in the room. So I'm like, I'm not paying $15,000 and walking away with 0 implementations, because I might as well just threw that $15,000 in a fire and just burned it all, right? So the 3 implementations for me is, number 1 is know your hourly worth and don't take on anything less than double that worth. All right, so know how much your hourly worth is. We talked about this at the beginning of the podcast, okay? And then what we were taught is like, don't take anything less than double that. So if my hourly worth is $500, then I'm not taking on any tasks that are less than $1,000 an hour. Okay, the same thing should be for you guys. If you're not at $100,000 a year yet, that should be goal number 1. Okay, and you don't take anything less than $100 an hour, because you know $50 an hour gets you to $100,000 a year. But figure out what your hourly worth is now. So the way you do that is take 40 hours times 52 weeks. Okay, and then you're going to go ahead and divide your current salary by that, okay, or your goal salary by that. Okay, so if I'm making $60,000, I'm going to divide the goal salary of $100,000 by that number, so I can figure out what my hourly rate needs to be, so I can grow to that salary or grow to that income level. Number 2, I'm going to not share all of this with you guys because I want it to be a surprise when it happens, but it's about implementing something that will change lead to trial conversion for our industry by 1,000,000%. And it is going to save studio owners so much damn time that when we come out with it, I'm going to get all the hugs from this industry. I know it. So we'll have more coming up on that. And then here's a funny stat, right? We have grown multiple 7-figure businesses, and we've never run a Facebook ad for our own businesses. It's been all organic growth. And I think part of the reason we never run ads is because, going back to that waiting for success to give me permission that we talked about earlier, I was always waiting for us to get to a certain level, and I was like, then I'll run ads, and then I'll run ads, and then I'll run ads. And then talking to a couple people this weekend, they're like, hey, you are like the biggest agency in your space, and you haven't run a single freaking ad. What do you think is going to happen when you run ads? Like, you are going to explode. So I made the commitment that we're going to start running ads July 1st for our agency and for our mastermind on August 1st. And it was phrased differently to me. It's like, hey, you're doing a disservice for your industry by not telling everyone about what you do and how you do it, because you just want to be comfortable and work with the people that already know about you. And I was like, oh, when I look at it that way, I'm dropping the ball on my responsibility. So our goal is going to be able to set this industry on fire, and we're going to make sure that you guys see us everywhere, all the time, always. I'm sorry if you don't like us, but you're going to see more of us. So that is our goal. I also then from that list made what my life is going to look like for the next 3 months. And it's really taking some of the things that I wanted to do farther out, or that I was telling myself someday that I was going to do, and then doing them within this next 3 months. And some of it's some pretty big crap, some pretty big goals and projects that I was like, just waiting for success on, but we're like, no, we're gonna knock this out now. The last thing that I want to touch on in this wasn't necessarily from this weekend, but it was actually from the weekend before. So the weekend before, my inner circle and I, we went and we rented a cabin up north in Arizona, and we spent the weekend there, and it was really almost like a mini mastermind of sorts. But going back to my deep questions, I was asking everyone deep questions, and we were getting all these great answers, and this great connection was happening with everyone. And then I got back, and I wanted to go in and run our staff meeting on Monday for MX Martial Arts. And I was talking to Kelly about some of the things that she teaches as well. And we sort of took a handful of the information we learned from this weekend and a handful of the information that she'd already been implementing, and we just sort of like mushed it all together. And I took this strategy and I sat down with my team, and we started the meeting going over wins and wounds. So when you go over wins and wounds, a couple of things happens. Number one, it's reminding your team to celebrate what they're doing well. And then secondly, it's teaching them how to take ownership for mistakes. I think it's very easy. I find there's like one or two personality types usually. There's usually the super self-critical, where no matter how great they do, they're always thinking about all the things they did wrong. And then you have the other side of the coin, which is the people that think they're doing awesome all the time and don't acknowledge any of their mistakes, which means they also have no power over fixing those mistakes. So we went around, and I started with myself first, because as the leader, you need to show that you're vulnerable first and that you're going to own up to your mistakes first. So I started, and I was like, hey guys, like I haven't been playing big enough compared to what I used to do. And that's my fault. So my promise to you guys is moving forward, I'm going to play big, and it's going to be uncomfortably big, but we're going to be in this together, and we're all going to move forward together. And then I went over for what I felt like was my win for the last week, which is something that's going to revolutionize our business. And then we all went around doing it, and it was so cool because if you guys know the story about our team, most of the average age on our team at MX is about 20 years old for our staff, so it's pretty young demographic. When I'm there, it goes up a little bit, but we saw all these young people going around and taking ownership over whatever mistake they made the last week. And then we saw everyone in the group supporting each other on those mistakes. So just volunteering to hold each other accountable for it. So it's a culture question when you're going over wins and wounds, because it's creating the culture that you want for your team. It's creating people that take accountability, people that look for victories and look for solutions and celebrate those victories together. The second deep question that I asked everyone is I said, I want you guys to take a piece of paper and I want you to write down the names of every single person in this room. Okay, and what I want you to do is, now that we have that list of everyone's names, I want you to think of one gift, an intangible gift that you can give each person on this list to make them the best version of themselves, or to make them a better version of themselves. So it's got to be intangible. So it can be a skill. It can be the feeling of something. It can be an outcome or result that you want for them. And when you think about the phrasing of this question, essentially what we're doing is we're getting them to sort of point out what they want to see each other do better, but in the form of a gift. So in most cases, like in businesses, a lot of times it's just like, hey, you fucked this up, you need to do better. Or it's, instead of even talking to that person and telling them and being transparent with what we feel they need to do better, it's, oh, I'm going to go talk to so-and-so about what I don't like about this person. And then it becomes talking behind people's backs. It becomes a gossip and a rumor mill. And all of a sudden your culture starts to gradually crumble over time. Where this drill gets everyone in the most respectful and polite way possible to say what they wish for each other. And I wrote this down. Let me see if I can find this. I'll give you guys the answers that they gave me. Yeah, we're going to get deep here. Here we go. Let me scroll to the right part of this. So what we did then is, as each person went around, so like I would go around and I'd say, Dream, I want to give you this gift, and Gabe, I want to give you this gift, and Rudy, I want to give you this gift. And then everyone's taking notes on the gifts that they're receiving, so they know what they need to focus on. And then after we went all the way around, I just asked them as a group, I said, hey guys, do I have all of your permission? Do we have each other's permission to hold each other accountable for these gifts? So that way, if I see this person act in this way, I can hold them accountable based on this conversation. And everyone was in agreement at the end of this meeting. So as you might imagine, I was gifted a lot of time from our team members, which was cool. So it's time with family. I was gifted the gift of being able to communicate my vision better, which is something that I've been actively working on. So I was glad to receive that gift. The gift of peace of mind. I think my peace of mind is usually okay. I have my crazy moments, but it's good. My manager gave me probably the most transparent gift. And she's like, I want to give you the gift of seeing you in person more, because I feel like we only see you when things are going wrong. And I was like, I totally agree with that. I go in there, I look at the numbers, and if things aren't going well, then guess what? We're doing training on whatever is not going well. But hearing it in that perspective as the leader, was it hard to hear? Yeah. Did I need to hear it? 100%. Because all of those things that they said, communicated vision, being there in person more, not just when things are going wrong, getting that time. And here's how I took the time gift, right? So obviously, we can't create more times. We all have the same amount of time, and it's finite time. We don't have infinite time. But when they're telling me they gift me more time, what I'm translating that in my head is that I need to make more time for them, is what it came down to. Not that I just need more time in general. So I was able to take the feedback from my team and just take those things and be like, all right, I know what I need to focus on now. And now everyone in that room got gifted something from each person, and they all know what they need to focus on now as well. And the cool thing is, you will hear, if you do this with your staff, you will hear the same thing being said to one person by like 3 different people. And what that is doing is it's reinforcing to that one person that there's 3 different people that see this thing that they're missing, that if they could snap their fingers, they would instantly give it to you. But unfortunately, we can't snap our fingers, so we're gonna have to work at this together to help you become the better version of yourself, or the best version of yourselves. So what I would encourage all of you guys listening to do is, if you wanna create a deeper connection with your team, and if you wanna get them to start really having truthful, honest, authentic conversations with each other, do those 2 prompts. Okay, so you can do it in 2 separate meetings. You do the same meeting as well. It doesn't matter. But first prompt was, we talked about like, hey, if you could gift one thing intangible to each one of these people, what would it be? The second one is going through wins and wounds, and we've actually taken the wins and wounds and made that a weekly practice now. So it's what we are going to start a meeting with every single week. And then the very last thing that we did, because we are culture focused, is I pulled out $100 cash and I put it on the table. And I said, the first person that can tell me all of our core values for MX Martial Arts word for word gets $100 cash. What I found out is no one could tell me all of them. So no one got the $100 cash, so I got to keep it. Hell yeah. But I wish I could have given it away. I wish there was someone that was like boom, 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 boom. So what does that tell me? That tells me that even though we talk about the core values a lot, we don't talk about them specifically enough. So one of the new things we're doing is every meeting, we're going to start with the core values displayed. We also started a most valuable person award, where every week the team is going to start by just calling out people that they have seen doing a good job showing the example of a core value. So we just go around and we're like, man, Rudy has been stepping up, helping out with class plans, and it's not even part of his job responsibility. He's showing we over me. He's showing our core value of putting the team before himself, and I think that's awesome. So we do a vote, and then at the end of the month, we do one final vote, and that person gets a $100 gift card. So whoever gets the most votes gets a $100 gift card, just a Visa gift card that they can use for whatever. But what it's doing is it's making sure that we're constantly promoting the culture, and also recognizing when we see people that are actually applying the culture in the workplace and by their actions. So now we're encouraging that culture constantly, right? And it's funny, we only have 5 core values. We don't have a lot of them, but a lot of times we set these in place and we might think that we talk about them enough. So my challenge for you guys is, when you guys go back and meet with your team, ask them, and you don't have to do $100, you can do whatever amount you want, but pull out a bill of some sort, more than $1, probably more than $5, probably more than $10. Say, hey, whoever can name our core values, this is yours. But they have to be named word for word. Doesn't matter if they're in order, but just give me all of them word for word. And if it was like my team, they're like, well, we over me, because that's the shortest one, it's the easiest one to remember. And they're like, something about being the cleanest and the safest place. And then like, we have to grow. And I'm just like, oh my God. But now I guarantee if I ask them next week, they're going to have a much better chance of getting all 5, or at least getting a lot closer to all 5. But at the end of the day, I'm the CEO, and it's on me for them not knowing their core values. So we had to go through and remake that a focus for our team. So I hope just in this episode, number one, you got at least some of the insights that I was able to pick up from this room of uber successful entrepreneurs and CEOs. Secondly, I hope that we gave you some good prompts for conversations to have with your team and conversations to have with your staff. Because I think one of the rampant errors I see in this industry is too many instructors, too many front desk people are treated just like employees doing a job, and they're not treated like human beings. You have to treat your team like human beings. Yes, they work for you, but their life is not work. They need to have purpose outside of that. They need to have connection outside of that. And we have to talk to them as human beings and not just giving commands to them, telling them to do X, Y, Z, that type of thing, because otherwise you're just a job to them. And it's very easy just to find another job. Okay, but when you build a relationship with them, when you actually show them that you care about who they are as people, like they start to see it as a career. They want to grow with you. They want to do all the things with you, which I hope you want that for your team, because that way they can grow with you. You can scale your business, and you have people that are fully bought into your purpose and to your vision. Guys, thanks for joining us this week. We will see you guys again on the next episode. Talk to you soon.